What's up, everybody? It's your favorite way to avoid an accident's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the FansToys Diverge, which is their attempt on Swerve. I got this in from Nick the Toy Guy. Great guy to do business with. It's also great if you live on the East Coast, because the shipping is going to be extra fast in comparison to competitors. So if you're interested, check the description. That's where his email is. Contact him, tell him Skully sent you. Now, Swerve is one of those weird characters, right? Because his impact in the show is minimal. He actually has a huge following and impact in the comics, and he's just not the most visually appealing robot. But that is entirely subjective, and we can't let it get in the way of the review. So with that, we're gonna move towards the review, but first we're gonna start with accessories. Real quick before we get started, a friendly reminder that the Blaster blanket pre-order is up. If you'd like to inquire about how to order either a Sherpa blanket or a woven blanket, contact me via email at bobbyskullface@gmail.com. The email will also be in the description. I think the pre-orders are only open for like a week and a half left, if you were interested. So he comes with 2 extra helmets. This one is identical to the one that you saw in the opening footage, except the shade of red matches the majority of red that makes up the vehicle or robot, whereas the one you saw in the opening footage is the more salmon colored. And then this one is, I think he has 2 different looks in the cartoon. I think that's what this is. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't do a more IDW looking one. Just because they have done that in the past, and because this character in the books is so kind of important, it would have been a nice touch. I probably would have used it, to be honest, but still fair accessories to begin with. Now, what good is helmets without faces? We have 3 different faces here. We have a separate stoic face with more of the visor as opposed to the separate eyes. And then we have separate eyes with the smiling, and then we have separate eyes with the frowny face. So a couple different options, all decoed the same way, which we will talk about when we get to the figure. And then, of course, he comes with the weapon. Nothing really spectacular about this. It does fold up and drop down, and the sculpt is decent enough, and I think it's painted as well. And he'll hold it with a notch that goes into the back and bottom of his palm, but it's not the most secure connection, as you can see. Interestingly enough, the hinge here is only for the articulation, it seems, of the weapon. It goes down and grabs onto a little silver notch between the legs, and then there you have it, if you're into that look. And let's look at the figure and go ahead and get in tight on the head sculpt for Dennis. Now, in typical FansToys fashion, it does come mistransformed in box. It comes like this, which is even more off-putting visually. Just lean this back, tuck that piece in, and then move it forward. And you gotta make sure that it's really tucked in there. And then you're good to go. So we have the head sculpt. And I think it's good enough. I think it's exactly what you would expect for the kind of like stoic Swerve face. Head swivels, hinges up, nothing really down. And I think that that's okay. The waist swivel is actually one of my favorite things. Nice ratchet and nice ab crunch. We also have the detailings here in the chest. We have the translucent plastic over top of what looks like chromed out stuff underneath with the gray outline paint on top, and then the little accents. Magnificent. Love it. Love to see stuff like that, specifically from this company. Let's move forward to the arms, where some issues do come. So you have a hinge. It's basically a universal joint. You have a hinge that gets you out to 90 degrees. Where it connects is back here, and it swivels this whole piece around, but it doesn't really stay locked in place in any way. Like, it feels like you want to have this stuck and then be able to move this piece separately. But because it's this whole section, as you go to manipulate it around, it starts to look weird. That's just, in my opinion, not the best design. They could have done that a bit cleaner. We have the wheels with the chrome accents. Once again, look good. The blue translucent piece up there, which looks a bit like Legos to me, but I don't think it looks bad. Bicep swivel right above the elbow. The elbow has a single hinge that gets you slightly more than 90 degrees. The wrist swivel, the fingers are on a base pin knuckle, and all of the arm is painted with the kind of top tier quality paint that we expect from FansToys, but we are not always getting these days. And that's it. Same for the other side. All the white is painted on the torso, by the way, as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but in case I didn't. Let's move on. Hip skirts. They get up and out of the way on both sides, as well as the front, with that same pearlescent white plastic that looks great. And we have drop-down universals with inconsistent ratchets. And we'll go ahead and back out a taste. So, out to the side, full Van Damme. Forward and back is where the drop downs kind of come to place. And I just say the drop downs because where they connect is a whole hinge that swings down. But that does allow you to get a higher range for a kick. So I'm not against when you do that. Nothing significant for the back, though, which is fine. Thigh swivel. We have the chrome thighs and toes, which I'm not a fan of. When they go this far tuned, I think it's off-putting. It doesn't match. You know, a dragon that doesn't know how to be a dragon, for those that know. And then a single hinged ratcheted knee that gets you 90 degrees back. And ankles. So we have a heel spur that's adjustable for stabilization. No ankle tilt up nor down. And the slightest bit of a rocker. We have the pearlescent white plastic with a little bit of sculpt work, which is always nice to see. The same red that looks good. And there he is from the back. So all of that, I'm kind of on board. Like, that's clean enough, I think. Size comparison wise, there he is with his typical mold mate. So once again, I am very happy that it's not a repaint, right? Totally different visual look, which we don't always get. Don't think that's lost on me. It's not. I'm looking. I'm liking. We'll go ahead and add the Bad Cube Swerve in as well. I'm not sure if the Versus will be this week or next week, but a Versus is going to come. And just because I'm such a big fan, there he is with the Make Toys IDW style Swerve with my first blaster, is it? In case you were interested. All right, let's get him transformed. So open up this part, you know, like we showed you. Twist his head back around, facing the opposite way, and then close it, and then bring up these pieces, which are tight like a tiger. But we're not going to let it stand in our way, are we? You can open up these panels here, tuck the hands in, make sure they fit whichever way you go. Let's see here. What's the best way? It's funny because I think they're supposed to go just straight in, so to speak, but I can't clear the thumb. Oh, there it goes. All right, fair enough. Sorry about that. It just like rubs up against it. See? All right. And then you want to rotate the shoulders back on those awkward joints so that you can flip out these pieces here, which I do think is pretty cool. On both sides. And then, kind of like just G1 style, you want to collapse the shoulder up and in. Make sure that this is lined up properly. And push it in. You know, same on this side. Make sure it's lined up properly. All right. And that's the top done. Moving on to the lower body. Collapse the heels. You want to take this piece, untab it, spin it around, and open up this panel here so that you can close that panel and then bring the white panel up and around. And then, and I didn't even realize this until I did it, but that there is a double joint there. And you have to utilize both in order to kind of clear everything. Oh, then I would use the ab crunch too. give you a little bit of room. And then bring this piece back around. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that one more time, perhaps even smoother if we really try. This panel needs to come out, up, and over, just to get it out of the way. Open up the, open up the white so that you can collapse the red, then collapse the white, and then bring this using, I should have seen, oh, but you can't use the bottom joint really because this piece will be locking it in, so you shouldn't, I don't think it'll make any difference for articulation. All right, then utilize both joints to sort of bring this around. Be mindful of that piece. Bring this up and over, and you got to get this piece out, which is like just another tab. You can tab all this together. And then bring this up. These door panels kind of fit inside, so just keep an eye on those. And then there's two clips inside that clip on to the front. And it's giving me a hard time, so I'm gonna do it off camera, but that's basically it. We'll clean it up, we'll take a look at it. And there it is, rolls like a champ. Once again, I think the silver is a little off, the chrome is a little off-putting. I think it works better in vehicle mode. I don't think that the vehicle mode is all that impressive. I don't care for the fact that it's not all that realistic either, but that's my preference. I think for going for a cartoon look, they did a decent enough job. It just seems like the whole thing could have been a little bit more involved. But I'll tell you what I do like. I like that the transformation felt like a modern representation of the G1 toy. I dug that. There it is. There it is next to Tiger Tracks. So I think that works size-wise. Final thoughts-wise, let's start with the negatives. I wish they would have included an IDW-styled face. I know it's not for everybody, but it is for many people. So to have the option would have been nice. I think the shoulder design is just inherently wrong. I think it should have been a separate piece for the base of the Universal to allow for the shoulder piece that connects to the backpack to plug in and remain secured, and then rotate the shoulder independently. The arms are kind of awkward in general, the way they move, the bump outs from where the tires sit, like the fender gets in the way of articulation at times. Speaking of articulation, obviously from looking at this, you can tell ankles are a significant issue here. The range of motion is limited pretty much across every possible outcome. And then overall, you know, I think that a lot of this, like the arms, a lot of the outside of the legs are just like, they're too simple. There's not enough love in it. And then lastly, I don't think that the chrome matches that super simple look. I think the chrome would have looked great with the figure that FansToys would have done 5 years ago, but it looks awkward and out of place on this particular release. Negatives wise for the transformation, I have to say that my only real issue is getting those hooks to really clip in at the end. It takes an excessive amount of force, both to open and to close. In fact, when I was going back to robot mode, I used so much force that it popped the sunroof translucent plastic piece out of it. And I think that the vehicle mode, like the whole thing, it's like one of those things where like it doesn't really look like a vehicle to me. Like it looks like something trying to be a vehicle. But I also get the idea that that may just be the Toon aesthetic attempt. So I do understand it. Moving on to the positives, I do like all of the face options. I think it gives you enough to kind of play with the character, so to speak, and bring it to life a bit more. This is a very soulless release in many ways. I love the sculpt work and deco work of the chest, torso, shoulder, like white area of the shoulders. I think that works nicely. I love that it's a completely different aesthetic look from the gears, similarly to their pipes and huffer. And I love the ratchet and I love the ab crunch of the waist. There's also great articulation in the hips, and to be fair, there, even in the shoulders, even though I'm not crazy about the design. So some parts of it I think really excel. Like I mentioned earlier, I really appreciate the idea that the transformation is kind of a modern representation or take on the original G1 toy. Like, it just feels like the evolution of it. It's also something that I think is easy enough to kind of flip back and forth without any kind of concerns. So I dig that as well. So look, I don't think it's the best thing that FansToys has ever made. And in the same breath, I don't think it's the worst thing that FansToys has ever made. I think it is a fair enough representation of a character that most people really don't care about. And maybe they didn't either. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.